this call. So just in case there are any who have missed this call, Connie and Al, I will be recording this so I can send that to you for anybody who hasn't had an opportunity to join or won't have an opportunity to join. What I would like to do in the half hour that I have with you, or that I have to present, is to take you through the lens of 3 different users in the SpinGo experience. The first is the end user. So somebody within your individual communities looking for something to do. Some of the tools that we've provided our media partners to drive traffic from different portions of the website into the main calendar. Some of the tools that they have once they are on the calendar. Secondly is through the lens of the media, the event promoter. So anybody submitting an event to your system, to your calendar, some of the tools that they have to gain extra exposure and what that means for you guys as the media partners by way of revenue. And then lastly, through the lens of the media partner. So some of the tools that you guys have available to you, like reverse publishing, customizable site widgets, and the like. So without further ado, let me go ahead and jump in. I'd like to show you just a few examples of our widgets that we have provided our media partners. Here is an example of the Little Village magazine. They're one of our partners out of Iowa City. Above and beyond obvious prominent links throughout the website titled calendar or things to do, we do recommend implementation of our widgets. As you can see here on the Little Village mag titled area events calendar down to add events in full calendar. This is a widget powered by SpinGo, both the interface as well as the content. Now these are fully customizable as far as the look and design element. You can see here on the Little Village magazine, this fits very well, very fluid into their homepage. Above and beyond the actual design element though, we have allowed media partners to customize the type of content that's included in these widgets. And I'd like to show you an example of what I mean. I'm going to jump over here. This is the Chicago Interview. They're a music-only publication. So the type of content that they're interested in is very different than the Little Village magazine. They are a music-only publication, so the sporting events, the business events, those types of events aren't relevant for their audience. And so with their widget here on the right rail titled Today's Shows, you can see as I scroll through the days and scroll through the hours, the only events that we're looking at here on this widget are music-related events, open mic nights, concerts at the park, jazz events, you name it. So rather than providing you with a widget and hoping that you're delivering content or events that your audience is interested in, we take a little more methodical of approach to it and allow you to stipulate this widget on the sports page only pulls in sporting events. This on the music page only pulls in music events. We found that this is a very engaging tool for you to drive traffic from the homepage and different corners of the website into the main calendar, which is obviously the end goal. If I were to click on any one of these events, it would anchor me straight into the main calendar. It's also worth mentioning, and we will go over this in more detail here in a few minutes, but if for the day you had your premiere spot sold, the premiere spot being an option event submitters have to upgrade their listing, that premiere event would also be listed on all widgets, which is an opportunity for you as the media partner to potentially charge a higher price point for that premiere spot and typically see a better conversion rate considering event promoters are getting exposure not only on the main calendar, which is sometimes a few clicks inside of the website, but now on the homepage and anywhere else the widgets are placed. One other integration I'd like to show you is we do offer full API access to all of our standard partnerships for you to build any custom integrations or tools around our content. The example I'd like to show is discoversd.com, one of our partners in San Diego. What they've done is they've pulled from our API into a custom integration here. You can see this sliding bar of events right below this, this advertisement here. And so they're pulling from our API. That is something available to all of our partners. Now, if we jump into the main calendar here, we're looking at the New York Daily News. Everything from this top promotional bar here that cycles through events and below is powered by SpinGo. Everything outside of this is yours to keep. This is your website. One of the biggest differences you'll find between SpinGo's integration and Zvent's integration is the fact that we do live native on your own site, your own domain. With a couple lines of JavaScript, we plug into your page. Thus, all of the time spent on page, traffic to, the click-throughs, these are all analytics that you guys are capturing for yourselves. As such, we have a lot of partners who are leveraging or selling against those analytics because it does live native on their site, and selling banner ads above or to the side of the calendar page, going out and finding local sponsorships, whatever that might be, as long as it's outside of the calendar page. Again, banner ads or sponsorships, that's 100% yours to keep. Obviously, we don't take any of that revenue. But let's go ahead and work through some of the tools here that the end user has. First of all, you can see here we're set to a 25-mile radius around New York City. However, as the end user, I can always navigate away from any of these default loads. For instance, if a 25-mile radius is a little too large, I need to find something within walking distance, I can bring that down to a 1-mile radius or as large as a 500-mile radius. I can also pull in a different city's events. I wouldn't say that this tool is used very often, considering most of our partners, much like each of you guys, are very rooted in your communities. However, if, for instance, I'm based in New York, but know I'll be in Las Vegas next weekend on business, I can always pull in Las Vegas's events. The New York Daily News in this case has default loaded to all categories. We do have quite a few partners who default load to a specific category or a handful of categories. You can certainly do that. But again, as the end user, I can navigate away or choose something a little more relevant to what I'm looking for. You're going to find in this drop-down list of categories that there are a few categories, or quite a few categories in this list, that are very specific to the New York market, or in this case, the New York Daily News. And that's because we allow you as the media partner to stipulate what categories you want in this list. We will provide you a main standard drop-down list. However, if there are custom categories or subcategories that you want built, we can absolutely do that. In fact, somebody just chatted in, can we create our own categories? Again, yes, absolutely. For instance, off-Broadway and theater, pets and animals. These are categories that aren't typically offered in our drop-down, but again, that the New York Daily News has said that they would be very interested in. So it's very easy, very quick for us to do that for you. Now we're looking at the grid view here, which is based chronologically. Anybody who submits an event to your calendar, which is free, by the way, to submit an initial event, will be listed here in the main body. It's worth mentioning that we do have a content team here in-house that handles all public submissions and the verification of those events. Just a few things that we'll look for. We'll make sure that images are coming in, making sure that events are coming in with images. We'll make sure that the content found within the image and the event is appropriate, relevant, makes sense for your audience, and that there's no gross grammatical errors or that the venue information is correct. So we'll take all of those support issues upon ourselves so that you guys aren't tasked with that. We also have the list view here. This is a little more organized, especially for those partners who are in areas that don't have a lot of content, where the grid view might look a little sparse. And then my personal favorite is the map view. This is going to draw that radius, in this case, 25 miles around New York. And those pins that you see there on the map represent venues. As I scroll through the events here on the right side, you can watch as those venues interact with me, showing me exactly where they're located. A nice tool, especially that benefits the venue, is I can scroll over and actually click on one of these pins and highlight or choose a venue to look at. That'll open the actual venue page, and if there are events happening here in the near future, they would be listed here. Let me show you maybe a better example. You may have noticed, though, even though I opened up that venue page, we remained on the New York Daily News' website. So again, this lives native on your site. We don't open any new tabs or new windows. This is all, again, keeping navigation simple and easy and on your website. Now, the add an event submission process is very simple. It's very easy. It's going to allow, again, anybody from the community to submit an event. Of course, it will go through a verification process by our team first before it's pushed live to your calendar. That submission process will run a global search on venue information as well as the title of the event to ensure that we don't have any duplicated content. We take the content and the accuracy and the quality of our content very serious. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this top slider bar here. As I mentioned, it's free for anybody to submit an event to your calendar. It will be listed here chronologically in the main body down below. But if one does want to gain a little extra exposure or promote that event, they must pay to be listed on this top bar. Now, there are two different types of promotions that the event promoter can choose or pay for. The first is the premier listing. You can see here this Moon Alice event. This is our premier spot. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, in the case that your premier spot sold for the day, that event will also be displayed on all widgets placed throughout the website. Now, we also have, as you can see here to the right of the premier event, which is much larger than all the others, these are our featured campaigns. The premier spot here is fixed for a 24-hour period, while these featured campaigns or smaller tiles are served up based off of impressions or views. And let me show you exactly what that process looks like. I'm going to jump out a couple of days. Sometimes the New York Daily News is sold out for a week or two in advance. Let me just choose an event here at random. Let's say this senior tennis and yoga event I'm the organizer of. I want to gain some extra exposure by promoting that listing. I can click on the promote button here. Now that's one way to get to the promote screen if I've already submitted the event, but it's worth noting that this screen we're looking at here is the last page, the last option anybody must go through before submitting the event to your calendar, which means this is an automated source, a fluid, automated source of revenue for your teams without having to get a sales team involved. We get every public submitter in front of this promotional screen. But you can see here the first option I have available to me is paying for impressions. Again, those are the smaller tiles next to the premier spot, which are served up based off of views and impressions. After I choose a campaign here or choose to bypass this and not pay for one, I can choose, well, let's just go ahead and show you an example here. Let's say I want this $50 transaction here. That will then load me to the premier event, which again, I can choose on a daily basis how many premier events I want to purchase. Now the price for that premier spot is set by you as the media partner. We're going to nudge you in the right direction as far as what we consider a good price point being. However, it is up to you to decide what you're charging for that price point. Now we do split revenue obviously with our media partners. Up to 50% of all revenue generated off of your calendar is shared with you on a monthly basis. 30% of that is for whoever displays the event, with an additional 20% earned by whoever drives that transaction. Okay, so just as an example here, this Moon Alice event, let's say they came in through the New York Daily News and spent $100 worth of promotions on the New York Daily News's calendar. In this case, the New York Daily News would earn $50, $30 because they're displaying it, with another $20 because they were the ones who drove the transaction. So this is a case where other partners in your area on the SpinGo network actually benefits you by having some opportunity for spillover revenue through other calendars driving transactions to your calendar and you driving transactions to others and being able to share that revenue. Great. So I'm just looking through some questions here. I think these are all great questions, ones though that would be wise to address here at the end of the call. But what I'd like to show you is an individual listing here, just some of the tools the promoter has. We will choose the Dirty Dash here. So you can see here just a basic description on the event as well as any information about a promo code if that promoter is using one. We've also provided some nice real estate down below for the event promoter to link to a YouTube video. You can watch here. As I open that up, it opens Inlay. We're not, again, opening any new tabs or windows or taking anybody off of your page. We have remained, I know this is a question that we'll get and that has also already been asked, but we have remained agnostic towards any one ticketing provider. We put the decision-making power into the hands of the event promoter submitting the event. So we allow the event promoter to choose who they sell tickets through if they want to sell tickets. Unlike others in the market, we do not force any one product or service on the event promoters. And as you can see here, you can either link over to a register page down below, or if they were this event were selling tickets, you would see the logo of the ticketing provider here on the right side next to event website with a link over to that ticketing page. In fact, I do believe the premier event for the day has that on their listing. As you can see here, tickets, it looks like they're selling tickets through this platform as well. So again, you can see what that looks like there. If this event were reoccurring, you would see here on the right side, there would be a calendar view with the days listed that this event were reoccurring and when they were occurring. So a nice little snapshot there, as well as some social media integration to share this across your networks. I believe that's a pretty comprehensive look here at the front end, some of the tools that the end user has by being able to filter content, change the view type, or search specifically for venue or performers. We've also walked you through the process of the event promoter, so some of the tools that they have to gain extra exposure, add elements to their listings, and drive traffic to their event, and what that means for you guys by way of revenue. So what I'd like to do at this time here with the remaining 7 minutes before we open it up to Q&A is I'd like to jump you into the backend or some of the backend tools that we provide our media partners. This screen that we're looking at here would be the landing page, if you will, as you log into the tool portal. The first tool that you have available to you is being able to customize the content. So I've mentioned a couple of times different ways that we gather events for you, obviously through public submissions. We also have a content team. The same content team that's approving incoming events are also going out and harvesting events on your behalf. Even though we're using these different avenues to gather events for you, doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have final control over what ends up on the front-facing calendar. And the tool that you have available or at your disposal to do that is right here. Let's say these top 2 or 3 events are in bad taste or inappropriate for your audience. You can simply come in and block those altogether. Now we also have the ability for you, or us rather, to put blocks in place so that this doesn't have to be as manual. For instance, if there's a specific type of event that you know you don't want on your calendar, you don't want to have to do that manually every time it comes in, we can put those rules in place so that you're not having to do that every time. On the flip side, we've also been able to create recommended tags or custom tags for our partners. For instance, if you have a widget on your homepage for editors' picks or best bets, we can create that recommended tag, and you can come in through the back end and apply those. Let's say your editorial staff wants to come in and pick 2 or 3 events each day and apply that tag. That's how they would do that there. Now, this is our submissions tab. Real briefly, as events come in from the public and they're submitted to your calendar, they will congregate here under our submissions tab. This allows you to then go in and grab any information that you need, maybe for your sales team to make outbound calls, or your editorial staff if they'd like to reach out to somebody for an interesting event they want to run an article on, or something of that nature. These will come in real time as they've been approved by our team. This is our reverse publishing tool. I would imagine this is going to be a pretty significantly used tool on the back end for most of those on the call today, as it is for most of our media partners. But what we've done is we've given you as the media partner 3 formats to export into, titled Simple, Detailed, and InDesign. And we've also given you the ability to build custom formats. As you can see through the example I'm showing you here, this media partner has built several others outside of the ones we've provided. And I'll show you what that process looks like. But just as a quick example here, let's say I send out a newsletter every Thursday for the weekend's concerts or music events. You can see here I give it the date range. So in this case, we'll do the 18th of July through the 20th. 100 miles is going to pull in too much content, so I'll drag that down to, let's say, a 10-mile radius. And then from there, I can apply the right categories. So for this example, we'll choose concerts. And you can see as I make those changes, it reflects real time here on the export. Now, if I had a subcategory under concerts, let's say concerts in the park or family concerts, I can even apply subcategories or multiple categories to the same export. So if I wanted to do concerts and fine arts, all in the same export, I can do that. From there, you can download that, or you can come in here and create a new format, as I mentioned. You can click on Create New, give it a name for future use, choose between one of 6 file types that we offer, and then lay this out however you'd like, just by simply clicking on the tiles here and or adding any custom HTML that you need. So you can get as technical with this as you need to fit any sort of current reverse publishing or export that you're working on right now by way of events. We'll also obviously assign each of our partners with a dedicated optimization consultant that's going to be able to help you with initial implementation with the calendar, as well as ongoing support like reverse publishing, customizable site widgets on different places in the website. These are all things that we will certainly provide on an ongoing basis. Our widget builder doesn't need a whole lot of attention right now. This is more of our text-based widgets. If you'd like to come in and create one on the whim, you can do that through this tool, and it gives you the live embed code here ready to plug in as soon as you have that built. We do highly recommend using our image-based widgets, as I showed you at the beginning of the call. However, again, if you wanted to use this tool to create something on the whim, you can certainly do that. And then finally, in the few remaining minutes that I have, I'd like to show you the last 2 tabs that would pertain to you. This would be our Configure tab. This allows you to customize the calendar's look and feel, and different customizations as far as where you're setting as your center point, how large of a radius you're setting around that center point. And then any information that you'd like to provide potential event promoters who are considering whether or not to pay for a promotion on your calendar, this is where you'd provide them with that information. So who your audience is, what kind of site visits you receive, what you're charging for that premier spot, and then if you'd like to add any extra benefits, you can certainly do that as well. It is worth noting that any extra benefits you're adding through this text field here or this box would need to be fulfilled on your side. So we auto-fulfill on all of the featured and premier spots. However, if you want to, let's say, include a Facebook and Twitter blast for all premier events, that would obviously need to be fulfilled on your end. And then finally, this is perhaps the most simplest and most powerful at the same time tool in our backend. This allows you, once the calendar is configured, to come in through this tool and grab your embed code, which again is literally 2 lines of JavaScript. Drop that into whatever URL or domain you have set aside and dedicated for the calendar page, and you're officially up and running. We do have partners who are building calendars in the AM. They've got it live and published on their website by the afternoon. And because of partners that we already have in the area or traffic that they're already driving to their calendar, they're generating revenue that evening and the next day. So it's a very fluid process, very simple. I've received many questions from many partners about SDK kits or something of the like to help simplify this process. And to be honest, that's been in the back of our minds as we've developed our product from day one to make sure that you don't necessarily need those kits. We've provided you self-serve tools here for this process to be as simple and easy as possible. So with that, I would like to now open it up to Q&A. I know that especially here through the backend tools, I turned the jets on. So I'm sure that there are several questions that you guys have. I know that several have been chatted in. What I'd like to do here is I'm going to go through the chat box here and go through the questions that we've already received. At which point, if you do have a question and you'd like to chat your name in or chat the question in, I'll go ahead and unmute you and have you ask that question. But again, as soon as I get caught up with the questions that have been chatted in, I'll then open it up to everybody else. And I've got Wade here as well, who's going to help answer some of these questions. But let me first find a question I haven't addressed. Okay, so let's see. We've already touched on most of these, but looks like there is a question from Jeremy, about the charge for the premier spot. We've already touched on that. Most of our partners set a specific price for their own. Again, we're going to nudge you in the right direction as far as what that price is, but you do have the final say there. Looks like Rhonda has asked, can a user or reader upload an image? Absolutely. Why don't I do this? I know that there were several questions as I've been going over the front end on what that submission process looks like. So I'm going to walk you through what a submission looks like here. Through clicking on add an event, I'm brought to this screen here where I have the opportunity to begin typing in the name of my venue. You can see here as I begin typing that in, it's going to run a global search in our database to see if we've already had that venue submitted. In the case that it is, I can just simply click here so that I don't have to duplicate any efforts or content. This is definitely a safety net that has worked out really well for our content to make sure that we don't have any duplicated content or venues. Same thing with the name of the event. It's going to run a global search on the name of the event to see if that event has already been submitted. If it hasn't, I'll click on add your event. And from there, I have all of the tools that I showed you on the front end. We've given event promoters the ability to add, like obviously the time of the event. If this event is reoccurring, I can type in a basic description on my event, as well as link to websites, ticketing pages, register pages. I can add information about what the cover cost is or if there's admission, as well as obviously putting in my information to be contacted when that event has been submitted and approved.
And one thing I'd point out there is that users have the ability to not only just submit one image, but they can submit as many images as they want, as I believe Jason pointed out earlier. And it's not just images, it's web links and ticketing links and all that kind of thing. And that's all free of charge. There's no cost for people to be able to upload those things.
So I think what's going to be most effective is if I bring Wade in this and we tag team. So I'm just going to start working through this list as they're coming in and have Wade help address these just so that we can streamline this process. So the first question here is our mobile app. So I'm going to have Wade just show you around some of our mobile tools here. I think the Little Village magazine is a great example because they're using our calendar in a responsive element. But let me go ahead and pass that off to Wade to address that.
Yeah, so the question was how would we add to mobile apps, responsive site, etc. So the first thing to note is that our JavaScript embed both our widgets and our main event guide calendar are all responsive designs. And so no matter how you put it in, you can set it up to be responsive, which is really nice. And that works well for desktop all the way down to smaller devices. Now what we've done is we've also created a mobile web app, which means that it has all the look and feel and function of a native mobile app, except it's just a URL that loads. And you have the ability to place that either within existing native applications if you want it. You could look at it like a feed going into your mobile app. One example you could look at on that to see a partner who's used it in that sense is the Daily Herald in Chicago. You can look on both the Android and Apple app stores, and they have a free version of their app, and you can go in and see their event section and see the mobile web app loading right within their native framework for their application. Another way you can use it is if you have a mobile website, a mobile-friendly website. So this would be really if you didn't have a full responsive design and you had a separate version of your website for mobile, you could plug it in there as well. You could still frame around it, put ads or navigation around it in that sense. And then lastly, for normal desktop sites, if people hit that with their mobile phone or a small mobile device, then they will redirect to that mobile web app to have a more optimal web experience. Our interface is very touch friendly for people with like tablets and things like that. It's just once you get to a small enough screen, it does get problematic. So we do have that mobile web app that it'll automatically redirect you, and then you can use based on what your mobile strategy is.
Great. So it looks like we also have a question here about our process around harvesting data, how we gather these events, from where do we gather those events, and for instance, is our events from a local university uh, type of event that we'll find within our calendar.
So the answer to that is yeah, you can definitely specify specific content that you are wanting or needing on your calendar. So the way we work is we really look at the partnerships that we have, and we want to make sure that you're presenting the appropriate content for your audience. And so we work very closely with you through the implementation and then ongoing support process to make sure that the content that you need is there. And so if any time you're saying, hey, we need these 10 music venues, or hey, we need all the university events for this um, for this college or whatever it may be, we're more than willing to take that and make sure that's getting added to their calendar appropriately. And really just comes down to, you guys are local experts in your local communities. You have that pulse and kind of the feel for what's going on, and we want to make sure that that's what we're getting, and providing all that complete content. So yes, absolutely, you can help specify specific sources of content that you would like to do. The only thing that we ask is that when we get all of our content, we go directly to the source. So if it's a musician, then we tend to go directly to that musician's website or to the promoter that sponsors them. Or it could be, for example, the venue. So if there's a local music venue or a comedy club or whatever it may be, we'll go to them as a source. University obviously would count as a source as well. We don't want to aggregate content from other event aggregators. So if there's just like a general ticketing site, we'll tend to not want to go to that. You can identify that that's the type of content you want, and then we'll go ahead and identify the sources and get it directly from the sources. And there's just a follow-up question to that. It says, so no scraping, right? That's 100% accurate. We do not scrape or crawl for the content. Everything is entered and verified by our content team to make sure really that it's dependable in regard to accuracy and completeness.
Great. Mike Williams also asked on the submission process or the events, is there a limit on events or venues that our team will add for our media partners?
There's not a limit. We really don't want to limit the amount of content. For example, if you go and look at New York, obviously there's been a lot more events than there are in, say, Iowa City, like what we're showing here in Little Village right now. But we realize that every market has a unique aspect to it when it comes to events and event content. We don't want to limit that. If there's specific ones that you're looking for, I mean, we guarantee that we'll have all the top tier events, so national tours, professional sports, all that type of stuff. And usually we'll have substantially beyond that in all of our markets. And we'll continue to work with your teams as you guys identify what's key in your market, what's key for your needs. Many of you, we may already have some existing media partners in the same or nearby markets, and so we may have better current coverage than others. But yeah, there's definitely no limit as far as the number of events that we'll provide to you.
Great. Now, there's also a question, do you guys pay for the content that we harvest? Not necessarily. It's not like we charge per number of events or per venue. We charge a monthly licensing fee, which we can get into a little deeper if that's fine for this conversation. But no, we do not charge for the amount of content. We just make sure that each of our partners are happy and satisfied with the amount of coverage we have in that area.
Yeah, and I think the key there is just point out that we have a set license fee, and that doesn't matter. If you have 10,000 events or 50,000 events in your local market, it doesn't change what the license fee will be. And the reason is that our team is really able to scale to the needs very efficiently. And so the license fee is really what we use to cover our actual technical costs for the platform, and or the servers and those type of things that we're hosting the platform and all of that.
Great. Now we also have a question from Heather. If the content team handles uploads and verifying, can we change those and edit easily or even delete an event?
So this is great. So what you guys have the ability to do, and maybe I can just show you very quickly. I know Jason was looking at some of this earlier. So here we are in the back-end tools. If we come into the content section, there's a couple things here you can do. One, you can always come in here and block events. So if I were to come in here, check an event and click block, that can be, in essence, deleted. It doesn't delete it from the whole system because we have a whole database of events, right? And we don't want to delete. We tend to not delete because we want to always be able to serve those up to the people that want it. But if it's not appropriate for your publication or for your calendar, you can block that. We also enable you to set up system-wide block. So for example, if you want to block all explicit content, you can certainly do that. We have partners that are say like they only show music events, and so we can block everything else from not showing up on their calendar except for music events. So we have a lot of control that you'll work with your implementation consultant on to make sure that everything's displaying the way you want it. And then for other things that come through that you just want to block on a one-off basis, you can do it here on your own. The other thing I'd mention is you can also edit these events. Basically, you can come in here, you can enter the URL to your calendar for that event, and once you've done that, you can edit the description, and it will only affect the description for your publication. So say, for example, you have a music editor that's writing a unique description or write-up or an article on a concert that's coming to town. You can take that and add it into your calendar listing, and it won't necessarily go out to the rest of the SpinGo network or the other event listings that are out there on competitors or other people's websites in your market. It'll only be unique to your event. So I think that should cover that question.
Definitely. So we have a question from Rhonda. Do you have any tie-ins to movie listings, movie and Showtime content on a local basis? Is there an extra charge for this?
So when it comes to movie data, that's a great question. And I know, for example, Z-Events had some partnerships for movie data to provide that to you. So SpinGo, we do not provide the movie data ourselves. We have some relationships with some third parties that can provide the movie data, and we're certainly happy to connect those. Basically, there's two aspects to movie data and kind of why we took this approach. Number one is we don't generally consider movies to be events, and so we're not necessarily all things entertainment. We are an event listing company, so we provide you event listings. Movies themselves are very valuable from an entertainment perspective, and so we understand the value of having that available to your users and readers. And so we do facilitate some relationships. That does not fit into the core costs of the core product of SpinGo, but again, we can certainly pass that information. Perhaps it would be appropriate for Jason to pass it over, and it can be distributed to the whole team that way.
Great. Now we also have a question here. It looks like a combined question from Jeremy. Does someone need to log in or create an account to submit an event or venue? And if so, can they log in using Facebook or Twitter?
Great question. I know this was just my personal experience with previous Z-Events partners that have switched over to SpinGo is I know that Z-Events did require logins. Actually, SpinGo does not require any logins for people to submit content. We do encourage it as people come in, and especially if they'll be submitting multiple events, because creating an account enables them to tie their events to that account so they can come back at any time and track the status of those events and things like that. But it's definitely not required, especially you have these one-off submitters coming in. They're going to create it one time or once a year. They come back in next year. They don't remember their password, so they don't have to do any of that. As far as Facebook and Twitter, we currently do not integrate with those login sources, but that's something we have explored and would probably build out in the future. I'm not sure if it's currently on the roadmap or not. I don't believe it is, but it's something that we have talked about and will likely integrate at some point.
Gary Funk has asked, how granular is your reverse publishing? Only golf, bridge tournaments, etc.
So yeah, great question. You can actually get very, very granular, and it's less about how granular you can get in reverse publishing and how granular you want to get in your category customization. So for example, if you want to create a category or a subset of content within a category that's golf tournaments, then you can pull it through reverse publishing. The beautiful thing about the platform is it's all very concisely integrated. And so you don't have to, if you create something in one place, it'll be available somewhere else. And so you could load a widget to just golf tournaments. You could have a category for just golf tournaments. You could reverse publish to just golf tournaments. And you could do all those things through one simple setup, working with our team, either initially at implementation or at any point after that through our ongoing support. So yes, you can get very, very granular.
Now, Linda has asked, does your API support login integration? And there have been several other questions about our API relationship and terms, and so I'll have Wade just touch on API as a whole.
So I'm not 100% sure what you're intending to ask with login integration, and so I apologize if I don't answer this correctly, but I'll try to do as accurate as I can. What the API is intended to do is provide you the ability to build custom custom displays or integrations for the calendar. So for example, if you already have a native mobile app and you don't want to use our mobile web app inside of that app, you can simply integrate with the API, pull the content in that way. That's definitely one way you could do that. It also can be used if you want to create custom widgets. Like I know Jason showed the widget on Discover San Diego. I'll just quickly show that very quickly. This is built off of our widget, or off of our API. This widget right here is built off of our API through some custom development that this property did. So there's a lot of different things. I know one of the other follow-up questions was, does your API allow location-based queries? It does. It actually can. We've actually just been recently building up the ability to do the lat and long searches via the API. I would have to get more information. I'm not 100% versed because that's a newer feature, but I know even previously you could basically pull the data based off of a zip code and radius around that zip code, just like you can on the calendar itself. But yes, lat and long searches are available. So basically, it's meant to be an on-demand service where it's pulling the content based off of the best. You're able to pull the content based off of when a user is requesting it based on the integration that you have. So if it's on a widget, if it's in a mobile app, whatever it may be, it'll be on demand, request it, and instantly serve that up for you. And so hopefully that answers the questions that you had, and I'm happy to answer more questions if you chat a minute about the API.
We have another question. Would you be able to import our existing calendar info and user accounts? The answer to the first part of that is yes. As far as existing calendar info, we've worked with Zevents, and they've agreed that they will be providing us with an export of all of your current content, and we're more than happy to ingest all of that so that there's not as much of a downtime as far as moving over to a new system and having great content coverage. As far as user accounts, I don't believe so. I'll have Wade speak to that, though.
Yeah, great question. We actually do not import over any user accounts. And we can get into more details to why that is. However, in this context, it probably just suffices to say that no, we do not integrate with your current user accounts.
We have another question from Rhonda. Can you show the phone view? I'll do my best here to pull up the Little Village magazine and size this screen down to something that might appear as though it were an iPhone. But let me scroll down here to mobile. In the case that your calendar were to have a premier spot sold for the day, it would be highlighted up top above Browse All Events. But once I click on Browse All Events, I would be loaded here into the mobile web app. Which you can see here has all the same functionality as the desktop view. I can change days. I can change my filters as far as radius, center point, and categories. And the individual events have all of the same functionality as a desktop view as well. So I've got my basic description as well as price. I have the ability to pull up this address or this venue in my maps, as well as social media integration as well.
And I think it's just worth noting again that there's a great app you can download for free as a test example of another use case of this. And it's, again, the Daily Herald in Chicago. You go to either app store for either iPhone or Android, and you can look that up. It's built by DoApp, but it's the same functionality that you could do with any app developer, and really easily integrate that into your existing app.
We have a question from Julie. Can we customize checkout info for those who upgrade? We want to be sure to explain this in a web-only upgrade.
That's a great question, and actually, that's not a customizable part per partner. However, it's something we can certainly evaluate. If you feel like the messaging is not clear enough, that's definitely something we would want to address. And so, if that's something we need to consider, we can do that on a global basis to all of our partners, and I can see some definite value in that.
Julie has also asked if there is a way for the media partner to create a print upgrade as well.
So the answer to that is yes and no. That quite frankly, you have the ability to say if you want people to be able to uh, provide additional benefits to promoters. So, for example, if you want to provide, if someone purchases a premiere day and you also want to provide a print advertisement with that, you could certainly indicate that. It's probably not optimized for that at this point. It's something we have talked about, and we definitely, be interested in talking, with current partners or potential partners about how they would see that working and fulfillment and everything else. That's one of those things where, in our dream scenario, that is something we'd like to do and really integrate with our partners to that level. And so it's potentially something we could work with you on.
Great. We also have a question from Heather for readers. Is there functionality to search for events within a customized date range, such as looking for events from this Friday through next Wednesday?
There's not a way to search per se that way. It would just basically be going to the calendar, choosing the day you'd like to start looking at, and then going through either day by day or clicking around to the dates that you wanted to look at. And again, you can filter it by category. So if you say, hey, I really feel like I haven't gone to a music concert in a while. And I want to check out a concert. Then you can start looking at the days that you're available, but you can filter it by music ahead of time or by concerts or whatever the name of the category would be.
There's a quick question as a follow-up to that from Julie. Can we have the default view set to a list? Absolutely. As I mentioned, you have the grid view, list view, and map view, and you can set each one of those three to be a specific default load. Again, the end user always has the ability to navigate away from those default loads, but you can absolutely put a rule in place to default load to either grid, list, or map.
And just to follow up on that, you also added, Julie, that many of your local events don't have photos. Our team, actually, when they get those events submitted, will make sure that there's photos attached to them. They'll find an appropriate photo and they'll go ahead and attach it because we know how our platform is very visually based, and we find that things that have images have much higher engagement levels. So we make sure that if you look at the calendar, many of the events that we go out and get don't have an image that's just readily available, but we make sure our team goes out and gets them so that everything has a nice image attached to it.
Regarding reverse publishing, it looks like Salem has a question. Is there the ability to FTP instead of download?
So right now, there's not an FTP option. That's, again, another feature that we've talked about and something we could possibly consider. Right now, you just have the download option. But because you have the ability to select kind of the filters and the templates you want, most of our partners have been content with that. Again, though, if it's something that you feel is extremely important, that definitely helps you be more efficient, then it's something we'd be definitely willing to consider and look at how we can integrate
that. Jeremy has a question about the Premier listings and the pricings, wondering if there's the ability to set different prices for different days of the week. For instance, could the cost of the Premier listings on Monday through Thursday be less expensive than Friday through Sunday?
So right now we actually have flat pricing, so it's the same for every day. In the past, we've experimented with pricing changing depending on the day of the week. And I won't go into a whole lot of depth. It's something we'd be happy to give you a lot more detail on and what our research indicated. But in short, we saw that it didn't necessarily affect how much people were willing to spend unless you had just an extreme difference, say like $10 to $100. But if you're saying like 25 to 50, it really ended up not being very, the data showed that it didn't really affect how many people were willing to promote. So, and it actually makes it much more complex on the technology side to have that self-serve promotional system if there are different prices each day of the week or certain parts of the week. So at this point, we've elected to go with flat pricing across each day of the week.
All right. What future functionality or enhancements are you looking at for the next year or so, and what can we offer that's an improvement over Eventful or Zevents?
Two really, really great questions. There's a lot of stuff that we are constantly doing to improve the platform. One of the, and I think those two actually very tie closely together, so I'm glad Jason brought them up together. Um, One of the things that when we look at the other potential, I guess, players in this market is, we really try to be the leader in innovation. Um, we develop very quickly. We look at what's going to drive engagement, what's going to be good for our media partners, and we really try to combine all those things into a platform that's constantly evolving and meeting the ever-growing needs of your web-based audiences. And then at the same time, we also want to still consider that reverse publishing and your print audiences are very important as well. So balancing all those things can be a little bit tricky, but we feel like we've done a really good job of identifying things that have a mutual value to both audiences and continuing to do that. So when we talk about our roadmap and where we're going, we obviously are always trying to enhance, the user experience. So things like some additional widgets that we'll be rolling out later this year that'll be even more engaging and provide some different looks and feels based on what you'd like to fit into your website. We have a lot of things coming in regard to redesigning the event submission process to make that as streamlined as possible. We want to lower the barriers to get people to submit content. And that's really a key for user-generated content, which can be very, very valuable, especially to a news organization. When you get users engaged in your site and have a simple process to do so, it's really, really powerful. And so we want to always be working on that. So we have a lot of development planned around that towards the end of Q3 and Q4 of this year. We also have development around our self-serve promotional platform to always enhance that to drive revenue. That's just a few of the things. There's definitely a lot of stuff constantly going in there. We're always, again, looking to innovate. We take feature requests from our partners very seriously. I don't know if this came up earlier in the call. I can't recall that it did. We actually have a support portal that you can go to and log feature requests. You can also submit bugs and other things and find guides and tutorials. But the feature requests I bring up because you're able to go in there, submit feature requests, and then we're always able to, we evaluate those and take those very seriously. We keep a track of who's requesting what, and we want to make sure that we're responsive to our partners and that we are providing the tools and the platform that really benefits you from both a content perspective as well as revenue and just general user engagement. So that's kind of a lot about our strategy, but it really hints at where we differentiate ourselves from, say, like a Zevents or Eventful. The other major thing that I would just mention there is that the content is human verified, and I know that's been touched on multiple times. But our team reviews and approves all content that goes onto the platform. So one, you don't have to, and two, it makes it so that we can have more dependable and reliable listings. The one thing we know is that what you put on your website or in your print publications is a direct reflection on you and your brand. And we want to make sure that as much as we're involved in that is a very, very positive experience for your users. And so having events that have the right time and the right location, and there's not a bunch of duplicates, that type of content is very key to our strategy because we understand how it reflects on you and in your engagement with your users.
Great. When we first spoke with Al and Connie, we mentioned that we would spend a half hour on the presentation with an additional half hour open for Q&A, but that we would set aside an additional half hour for anybody who wanted to linger. We have taken the first hour out of your time, and so we just wanted to say before anybody leaves, we appreciate your time. Again, as mentioned earlier, we're thrilled to be in front of you and present our product and be considered as your new vendor as far as your digital event solution is concerned. So for those of you who need to leave, we will be in touch shortly. We may be sending out a follow-up email with embed codes that allows you to plug this calendar in on a test domain to start getting a feel for the functionality of the calendar. So here in the near future, you will be hearing from us. But again, we wanted to thank you for your time. For those of you who do want to stay, we do have another half hour that we've set aside for additional questions. So having said that, we'll just continue to work through some of the emails that have been backing up as Wade has been talking. The first is what is our turnaround time between submission and approval? For some time, we used to be able to get to those very quickly. In fact, our guarantee for some time was 1 business hour. At this point, we're getting anywhere from 25 to 30,000 public submissions a month. And so what we've done is we guarantee that we will get to those events from time that they're received to push live to your calendar and approved within 1 business day. Obviously, we understand that these events have a very short shelf life, and in some cases are happening the next day or the next weekend, and so we will get to those as soon as possible, but always within the same business day they're received. The next question from somebody that we've received is who else in your markets are using SpinGo? We do have a link. We have over 1,000 media partners nationwide in every single one of the 50 states. In that follow-up email, I will send a link to all of you, but if you want to write that down at this point, we do have that list published on our website at spingo.com/partners. And I'll pull that up here on the screen just so you guys can grab that. There was also a question in relation to that. Do we have the bandwidth to take on another 30 markets if we were to bring on, or rather when we bring on McClatchy? So I'll have Wade speak to that as far as bandwidth and support issues.
Yeah, one of my responsibilities here at SpinGo as the VP of Operations is to oversee all of our fulfillment to our partners. So I appreciate this question and being able to speak to it because content falls into that fulfillment aspect. We actually are. We actually have several strategic projects running concurrently that I won't go into details on, but some major projects as far as ramping up content across the country are concerned. And we are continually doing that. We're growing our content team, and we actually have already prepared for a mass influx of new partnerships based on some of our internal initiatives. And so, to be honest, we're scaling for bringing on hundreds of new markets at a time, and that's our goal. And so, 30 or in that range should not be any issue for us. Often, we'll assess a market when we first are looking at it, and at worst, we ask for a 30-day ramp-up period if we're not already ramped up in a given area. But that would be the most, is just, again, a 30-day ramp-up period to get content up to where it needs to be for you to launch.
Great. There's another question here that we've already addressed, but you mentioned that users did not have to log in to submit an event, but could they log in with Facebook and Twitter? We've already addressed that we do not have that functionality at the moment.
Yep, something we'll definitely be evaluating in the future, but it's not currently available.
Great. It looks like we've gotten pretty much caught up on most questions. There's just a few others here. The first being, do we have a Spanish language calendar or the ability to convert languages?
So currently we do not. It's a very complex issue in a lot of ways to translate all the content, especially user-generated content and everything else. So right now there's not a Spanish language or anything outside of English is not available. We have on our overall corporate roadmap to go international at some point, and that date's obviously flexible. And as we do that, we'll be getting more into additional languages and things. And really, if we have a partner need that has a substantial need for it, it's something that we can evaluate. We haven't had that big need yet. As we've stayed just in the United States, and we haven't gone internationally and things like that. So we have not worked to integrate that. It will be something we'll do at some point, though.
Great. One more question here from Charles. What is our revenue model?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So it's really split. So on the one side, we have a monthly license fee that we have with all of our partners, and so Jason can work with Rhonda and provide all that information to each of you as far as what any cost would be. But there's that monthly licensing fee that's a monthly recurring revenue model. The other side of it is on the promoted content. And I know Jason spoke to this briefly towards the beginning of the presentation today, that we share the revenue that comes in through that promoted content. And so we share that with our media partners, And so that's the other portion of our revenue model. And it's just to I guess emphasize here, there is the self-serve portion where anyone who submits an event or goes to the calendar has the ability to promote an event and get more exposure, place it at the top of the calendar, and so on. But we also have a team here internally that works with large event promoters across the country. We've worked with groups such as like Adam Carolla, who's a comedian, Skull Candy, which is a lifestyle brand that does headphones and things like that, all the way down to local music groups and venues. You saw when we were looking at New York Daily News earlier, there's an event promoter called Moon Alice. That's a performer that our team worked with and basically showed them, hey, we have these 1,000 great media partners across the country. You have a national tour coming up. Let's work together to get maximum exposure. And so we'll actually go out and engage these folks, sell them, and then share that revenue with you, since you are providing some of the distribution for that event content to be seen by the public. So again, revenue model, partially the promoter revenue and partially the licensing fees from our media partners.
Great. We also had a question earlier regarding how SpinGo, our calendar embed, integrates with your analytics and your ad serving code.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Obviously there's a lot of different pieces of software, analytics-wise, and ad code things that are out there, and how it can integrate may depend a little bit on what you're using. In general, though, we can provide out of the box. It is able to be integrated in. So, for example, New York Daily News is one that I work on very closely on the fulfillment of getting them set up and transition from Cvents over to SpinGo. And they did have a question about that, sorry, we did implement their analytics. They were using Omniture.
We use Omniture.
Oh,
this
great.
is Connie. We use Omniture.
Great, that's perfect. So yeah, we've done Omniture integrations in the past, and it is available out of the box. It's not necessarily part of something that our implementation team is going to be able to provide all the information on. And so if the technical folks on your end are not available or not experienced in how to set that up, we can provide like the basic parameters of this is what you need to do. If they need help with that, then we have some professional services. Generally, it's about $150 an hour, billed in half-hour increments. And a job like that would probably only take them 2 to 4 hours generally. And so you'd be looking at a few $100 to help if you needed our engineers to jump in and help you get that integrated. But again, we'll provide the basic direction that you need to get to. And if your team can handle that, then it's available out of the box. There's nothing else you have to pay for there.
Great. We have a question about RSS feeds, if they're available for events.
We don't have an RSS feed available. Really, whenever someone brings up an RSS feed, we tend to just dive in and see what the use case would be. So if you're able to type in what your use case would be, I could probably address it more directly. But generally, we're able to find appropriate, I won't say workarounds, but alternatives to how to accomplish the same thing that you're trying to accomplish with an RSS feed via the API or widgets or another way that we can provide that for you. So again, we're willing to look at that use case and see what we can do to make sure you fill that need.
Great. Quick question from Julie. Sounds like you guys are closer to Vancouver than Seattle. Do we have any international listings?
Yeah, at this point, it's all just based in the U.S. There's nothing international. Again, we do have plans to go international. I don't know the exact timeline on that. It probably wouldn't be until at least the middle of next year. So at this point, no, nothing in British Columbia or Vancouver area. Although, again, in the future, definitely be there.
Great question from Gary, and this was a question I was hoping would be asked so that we could speak to this, but if there's a competitor already using SpinGo in your market, is data shared, or are we able to wall off certain categories?
That's a really, really good question, Gary, and I'm glad you bring it up. So there's a couple things when it comes to the SpinGo network that I think are important to keep in mind. So number one is all events that come into SpinGo go into one central database, and then we enable all of our partners to pull out of that database based on what they want to see. So it could be based off of geography, it could be based off of categorization, and so on and so forth. And so there could be multiple people in the same market that pull very different content based on what they're choosing to display. In addition to that, you do have the ability to create custom categories. I believe this was mentioned earlier, but we provide you the ultimate flexibility with your categorization. So when we start working with you, you basically just tell us, hey, here's the 10 or 12 or 50 categories we want, and here's what we want in each one. You work with your implementation team to get those in place, and then you can name the categories, you choose what you want in them, and so forth. So you really have that total flexibility. So your calendar can look 100% different from someone else in the same market who really could even be displaying the same content, but based on how you've categorized it or how you're having it appear to your users, it's going to be a very different experience. And so we provide a lot of flexibility there. The last point I'd make on that is it's actually very key that this issue, and I know from a media perspective, it's often exclusivity is king type of mentality, and that may be true for news and breaking stories and things like that, and we acknowledge that. However, event data is a little bit different. It's very rare that there's an event that should be exclusive or unique to one group or one media partner, for example. So say, for example, that the Imagine Dragons are coming in concert. That's going to be public knowledge. It's going to be all over the internet. It's going to be on all the radio stations, on all the TV stations. It's going to be all over the place. And so it's going to be very well known. And so you do have the ability to create proprietary events and load them into wherever you'd like to on your calendar. So say you're having, at your studios, you're having an open house. You don't want to go out on any competitor sites that are in your area. You can certainly set those up that way and have them be exclusive to your calendar. But media content in general, event content in general is going to be more publicly known, and it's just a matter of presenting it nicely to the public. And then also from a promotional standpoint, it enables you to really leverage, to earn revenue by leveraging every site that's using SpinGo in your area. So as more people come in, say they go through your competitor site, but they see that they have the ability to also promote on your calendar, you can earn revenue off a user that otherwise you may not have ever had communication or contact with. So there are some distinct advantages.
Last question it looks like we have here is from Shirley about, again, up north, looks like you guys are very close to the Canadian border. If we don't have Canadian content or aren't adding it ourselves, can you as the media partner add that?
So right now, the way our system works, it's not able to handle anything outside of the U.S. Purely based off of the address, the location information. Our database is not able to handle the address and location information for international locations.
All right. Well, it looks like that was the last question we had. We'd like to take this time to send out a last call, if you will. If anybody else left on the call has any questions, please send those in at this time. I've pulled up a screen here so that you guys can all see this. This is spingo.com/tour. This is going to have a couple of videos as an overview of what we've gone over. None of these videos are longer than 2 or 3 minutes, so they're a pretty, 30,000-foot view overview of what we've gone over, but might be a nice refresher course for anybody on your teams that weren't able to make it in on the call. We have also recorded this demo, which we will be sending out possibly through Al and Connie, but we will make this available to everybody in case, again, you need a refresher course or somebody wasn't able to make it on the call. So again, last call for questions. If you wouldn't mind sending those in at this time, we will make sure to answer any more before we end the call. Connie or Al, were there any things that anything that you guys wanted to mention before we concluded?
Yes, Jason, this is Connie. Thank you and Wade very much for a great walkthrough of your product. And I'd like to remind our markets to please grab Jeremy Gokel's email and reply back with your feedback on the demo. If you could get that back to us as soon as possible, that'd be great. And finally, if you could send Al and I the link to this recording. Do you know if we could have it by end of day for anybody that couldn't make it? I think we only had a couple that couldn't make it, actually.
Yeah.
But I'd like to get it.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying it's usually it just has to be downloaded and converted from the GoToMeeting format. So usually it's pretty quick. If not
Great.
by first thing tomorrow, but it shouldn't take too long.
Great. Thank you.
And Al also asked throughout the call while we were talking about movie listings, he asked if I would send him the contact information for the relationship we have with a movie supplier. So I'll go ahead and send that over in the same email.
I would also send him the sample embed codes that you mentioned, because we'll be testing that at MI on our test servers to check for latency or anything.
Great. Yeah, well, that for sure will most likely be sometime tomorrow. I don't know that I'll be able to get those all together today, but give me a couple of days on that, and I'll make sure that those are sent over to you. But I'll make sure to get that recording link and the movie contact information over to you as soon as possible.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well, it doesn't appear that we've had any more questions since that last call. So again, we appreciate everybody's time and look forward to continuing these conversations.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. You as well.
Everybody.